You canceled the plans again, and the moment you hit send on that message, "Sorry, I can't make it," you felt two things at the exact same time: relief and guilt, because you know what they think. They think you're cold, distant, that you don't like people, that there's something a little off about you. Maybe you've even started to believe it yourself. You've been called antisocial so many times that the word has started to stick to your skin like something you can't wash off. But here's what nobody tells you. What if the way you need solitude isn't a personality flaw? What if it isn't loneliness, depression, or a sign you're broken? What if your brain is, in fact, running one of the most sophisticated regulatory systems in human neuroscience, and it simply needs quiet to function at its highest level? Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to hear might be the first time in your life that someone explains you back to yourself accurately. Let's talk about your brain, not in the way a textbook would, in the way it actually feels to live inside it. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Not all brains run on the same fuel. Research by neurologist Dr. Marty Olson-Laney identified that the brains of people who crave solitude operate on a different dominant neurochemical pathway. While more socially driven personalities get their reward hit from dopamine, the loud, fast, exciting chemical of novelty and social buzz, your brain runs primarily on acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is quieter. It rewards you for thinking, for noticing, for deep focus, long conversation, and genuine connection. It doesn't light up in a crowded room. It lights up when you're alone with your thoughts, or in conversation that actually means something. And here's why that matters. Because dopamine is also a volume dial. When there's too much stimulation, too many voices, too many emotional cues to read, too much noise, your brain doesn't just get tired. It gets flooded. The very chemical that's supposed to feel good starts to feel like an alarm. Now, add your amygdala to the picture, the brain's ancient threat detection system. A 2026 neuroimaging study published on PubMed found that people with a strong preference for solitude show measurable activity in the anterior insula, the region that processes social pain, but their brains actively suppress the outward response, meaning you feel social discomfort more acutely than most people. You just don't show it. Your brain learned at some point to turn that signal inward. Then there is the default mode network, the DMN. This is a constellation of brain regions that activates when you're not focused on the outside world, when you're daydreaming, reflecting, connecting past experiences to future meaning. Research consistently shows that solitude-preferring individuals have higher baseline activity in the DMN and the prefrontal cortex, the seat of complex reasoning, ethical thinking, impulse control, and long-term planning. In other words, when you are alone, your brain is not doing nothing. It is doing everything. And finally, your nervous system. After social interaction, your autonomic nervous system has been working intensely, reading micro-expression, tracking tone of voice, managing your own emotional output, regulating what you show and what you hide. Neuroscience research published in early 2026 confirmed that the need for solitude after socializing is, at its core, a nervous system recovery response. It is not antisocial. It is biological maintenance. Your brain is not broken. It is expensive to run, and it knows exactly what it needs. Let me describe your life in small moments. Tell me if this feels familiar. You walk into a social gathering, and within 60 seconds, you've already read the room. You noticed who is uncomfortable, who is performing happiness, who is about to say something they'll regret. You didn't try to do this. Your brain just did it, automatically, without effort. And now you're carrying the emotional weight of 6 people, while also trying to manage a conversation about nothing in particular. You stay for a while. You laugh at the right moments. You answer the questions. You're present. But somewhere underneath all of it, a quiet countdown has already started. You go home, and the moment the door closes behind you, you exhale for the first time all evening. That exhale, that is your nervous system finally being allowed to stop performing. You don't dislike people. You actually love people deeply, specifically, and with an intensity that most people will never understand. but you require that love to be real. Small talk feels like trying to eat paper when you're starving. Surface level connection doesn't just bore you, it drains you in a way that socializing is supposed to do the opposite. You've sat in rooms full of people and felt profoundly alone, not because you were rejected, but because no one was saying anything true. You notice things others miss, the slight tension in someone's voice when they say they're fine, the way a conversation shifted right before someone got hurt, the unspoken agreement in a room to not talk about the thing everyone is thinking about. Your brain is processing multiple layers of social reality simultaneously, and that is not a small thing. That is a highly specialized cognitive load. You prefer one conversation to 30. You prefer 3 people who know you completely over 30 people who know you casually. You send a voice note instead of calling. You need a day of quiet after a week of output. You sometimes disappear not because you don't care, but because caring for you is metabolically exhausting. And when you finally find a person or a space where you don't have to manage yourself, you stay completely, fully with everything you have. That is not antisocial behavior. That is a highly calibrated relational system protecting its most valuable resource, your energy. But I won't lie to you, because you deserve honesty more than comfort. This way of being has a price. There are days when the solitude you chose starts to feel like solitude that chose you. When the quiet you needed becomes a quiet you can't escape. When you realize you've gone 3 days without a real conversation and part of you didn't notice, and that frightens you a little. There is a particular kind of loneliness that belongs only to people like you. It is not the loneliness of having no one. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by people and still feeling unseen, of being articulate enough to explain everything to others and yet never quite finding someone who explains you back to yourself. The emotional labor is real, holding your nervous system together in social situations that feel like sensory static, smiling through conversations that feel like slow erosion, the exhaustion of giving people your real self and watching them misread it as coldness or arrogance or aloofness, and the relationships that depleted you, the ones where you gave your full, quiet, intense attention and received performance in return, those left marks. Your nervous system remembers every single one of them. Research from sage journals confirms that solitude functions as effective deactivation, your brain's way of powering down high arousal emotional states, which means your need for solitude often grows after relational pain. This is not withdrawal. This is your system doing exactly what it was designed to do. So let me offer you something now. Not a diagnosis, not a label, a reframe. You are not antisocial. You are highly selective. There is an enormous difference, and the world has spent decades refusing to make it. Antisocial is the absence of care. What you have is almost its opposite. An excess of perception, an excess of feeling, a nervous system so finely tuned that it cannot afford to waste its signal on noise. Your prefrontal cortex, the most evolved region of the human brain, is more active in your resting state than in most people's engaged state. Your default mode network is processing meaning, connection, and complexity, while others are simply moving through their day. The anterior cingulate cortex that makes you feel social pain more acutely also makes you a more compassionate, more aware, more genuinely present human being when you choose to show up. The introvert, the solitude seeker, the person who canceled the plans, is not running away from life. They are running a more complex version of it internally, in the only environment where that complexity can breathe. You are not broken. You are not cold. You are not difficult. You are someone whose inner world is so full that the outer world, especially the shallow, loud, unreciprocated version of it, simply cannot compete. Give yourself permission to need quiet, to choose few over many, to recover, to exist at your own frequency. You are not less. You are just different in a way the noise never understood. If you made it to the end of this video, I already know something about you. You didn't share this with 10 people. You probably saved it quietly. Maybe you'll rewatch it alone in the evening when the house is still and you finally have room to feel things properly. That's okay. That's you. And that version of you is exactly who this channel exists for. There is a whole tribe of people who watched this video in silence and felt, for the first time in a long time, that someone got it right. If that's you, if something in this script felt less like content and more like recognition, drop the word quiet in the comments. No explanation needed, just that one word. Your people will understand. And if you want more of this, the kind of psychology that doesn't pathologize you, but illuminates you, subscribe. Stay close, because the world is very loud, and you deserve a place that isn't.